excited. Good talk. Thank you. Okay.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury can hear. If you'll state your name and spell your last name.
Catherine Imler. I, M as in Mike, L-E-R.
Our guy?
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Imler,
Oh, that's
back
a
in
lady.
2017,
Dang.
did you have a different name?
I did.
What was that?
Andrews.
Okay. And back in 2017, how were
It's
you
a lady.
employed?
I was a crime scene investigator for the city of San Antonio.
Okay.
You got me.
And as a crime scene investigator for the city of San Antonio, what was your title, or what kind of training did you have to undergo to become a crime scene investigator?
Crime scene investigator training requires 400 hours of in-classroom training, along with 5 weeks of rides with a senior crime scene investigator.
And are you trained in evidence collection and preservation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And how long were you employed with the city of San Antonio?
Just under 7 years.
Okay. And on April 23rd of 2017, were you employed as a crime scene investigator with the city of San Antonio?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what shift you were working?
We're going to spend
B
some time
shift.
on this witness.
And do you recall what time that was?
That was a 2 p.m. to a 10 p.m. shift.
All right. And on that day, were you dispatched to 27 Northeast Loop 410?
I was.
And was that location located in Bexar County, Texas?
Yes.
Do you recall what type of location that was?
It was a Chick-fil-A restaurant.
And do you recall why you were dispatched to the location?
I was dispatched to assist another CSI that was processing a shooting.
What was that CSI's name?
Kimberly Wong.
And just so the jury's aware, can you explain what the abbreviation CSI stands for?
Crime scene investigator.
Okay. And do you recall the SAPD case number associated with this case?
I'd have to see my report.
Okay, and so you wrote a report back then?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Here comes the report. Let's see if it was accurate or not.
All right, now I'm showing you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 13. Do you recognize this document? Whoa. Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 13 for identification purposes. Do you recognize this document?
I do.
All right, and is that your name contained on the document?
It is.
And was that your badge number back in 2017?
Yes.
And this is a fair and accurate version of your report?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've reviewed this before today, correct?
Yes.
All right. And would it help refresh your memory if you were able to refer to it during your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Just make sure you don't read exactly from it, but if you need to refresh your memory, you can look at it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, if you can take a look at that and just let me know what the SAPD case number that was associated with the case was.
The SAPD case number is SAPD 17089350.
All right. And is there an incident number that was associated, or CFS case number associated with the call?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is that?
It is SAPD-2017-0424-102.
All right. And do you recall, or can you describe the scene that you encountered once you arrived at the location?
Yes. When I arrived at the location, I observed a deceased male with a yellow tarp over him. Parking lot was fairly empty. It was contained.
Okay. Do you recall what other crime scene investigators you were working with on that day?
Yes, Kimberly Wong and Matt Flores.
All right. And when you arrived on scene, had a shell casing been located?
No, ma'am.
What did Kimberly
Alright,
do? They keep saying she's wrong.
Ultimately, do you recall who was able to locate the shell casing?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was that?
I identified the shell casing.
And in preparation, you've met with me before this to go over your reports, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've had a chance to review some body-worn camera footage that contains you?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14 and 15. Do you recognize what is contained in State's Exhibits 14 and 15?
Yes.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the scene on that day?
Yes.
Okay. I'm tendering to defense for inspection. The state offers States 13 and 14 respectively.
No objections.
All right, State's Exhibit 14 and 15 are admitted without objection.
May we publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, now on State's Exhibit number 14, can you see that up there? Sorry. There you go. Can you explain to the jury what is depicted in State's Exhibit number 14?
Yes. You can see the yellow tarp, the end of it on the bottom. There's a patrol officer, and then myself.
Okay, and this,
Yes.
what I'm pointing at is you?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we see
And
it, please?
State's Exhibit number 15.
This one, again, you can see the yellow tarp. In the back, that is Kimberly Wong, and then I'm also in that image.
All right. And so this individual that I'm pointing to right here, who is that?
Kimberly Wong.
Okay, and this individual I'm pointing to, who is that?
That's me.
All right. Do you recall, so ultimately, you're the person that locates the shell casing and points it out to Kimberly Wong and the officers on scene, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you recall what kind of shell casing it was?
It was a 9mm.
All right. And did you prepare a crime scene sketch in this case?
I did.
All right. Now, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 16. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes,
And did you participate in the participation of this diagram?
I did.
And were you familiar with the locations and objects contained in the diagram at the time of the preparation?
Yes.
Okay, and is State's Exhibit number 16 a fair and accurate depiction of the layout of the crime scene as it appeared at the time of your
Can we
investigation?
see it?
Yes.
Tendering to defense for
Yeah, they're
inspection
greedy
at
in
this
this
time
trial.
state
They're not showing us anything.
No objection.
State's Exhibit number 16 is admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Granted.
So briefly, can you explain to the jury the process for preparing the sketch and obtaining the measurements that are obtained within the sketch?
Yes, ma'am. So after the items of evidence are identified, a sketch is completed noting any structures or any information that may be able to provide detail about the location, in this case, a parking lot. Each item is measured from 2 points of reference using a wheel, a measuring wheel, and then you take two measurements, one, in this case, maybe from a curb line to that item of evidence, and then from another curb line to that item of evidence.
Okay. And I'm going to zoom in on State's Exhibit number 16. All right, and we can see reflected within your sketch on State's Exhibit number 16, there is something labeled E1. Do you recall what E1 represents?
E1 represents the shell casing that Kimberly Wong marked with a placard.
Okay. And is Kimberly Wong the person that seized E1?
No. I first identified it, and then she put the placard down.
Okay, all right.
I almost regret asking him to show this. What are we looking at?
And at the scene, you earlier stated that there was a deceased victim identified, is that correct?
Yes, there was a deceased victim on scene.
Okay. And as part of your duties as a crime scene investigator, had you previously been trained on collecting gunshot residue samples?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury if that's something that would have been done in this case?
Yes.
And why is that?
Anytime that there is either evidence or suspicion of a gunshot residue tests are collected from anybody that's possible. Even the deceased victim. Sometimes they want it from witnesses, but in this case, the deceased victim.
Okay. And what does the gunshot residue kit contain?
It contains two vials, one for your left and one for your right hand. It contains gloves, and it also contains a document that you have to fill out, basically answering questions if you're able to. Sometimes you can't answer the questions.
Okay. And can you just explain to the jury how you go about collecting the sample?
Yes. In general, or in this case?
In this case.
Okay, so in this case, the medical examiner arrives on location and basically provides the permission to collect it. You again use one vial for their left hand, one vial for their right hand. It has like a sticky pad on it, and you essentially tap the back side of the hand, sometimes down the wrist, in between the fingers, on both hands.
Okay. And that's what you did in this case?
That is what I did.
Okay, and so did you follow all the appropriate instructions and procedures?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you collected samples from both hands, is that correct?
Yes.
And were you wearing gloves when you did this?
Yes.
Okay, and after collection, what do you do with the sample?
I secure the sample. It has its own red label, and then you place it into another envelope, tape it, identify it with your badge number and initials, and then turn it into the property room.
Okay. And is this evidence seized under SAPD case number 17089350?
Yes.
Okay. And when you seized that, if you want to take a look at your report, was that marked as E1 in your report?
In my report, it was identified as E1.
Okay. And when you seized it, did you make any unique markers on it?
Yes. My initials and my badge number and the date.
That's what I'm saying. They're talking about any time a gun was fired, then they take GSR. None of that happened in ASAP Rocky, as Kara mentioned in the chat, or as Libby mentioned in the chat. Great point. What happened to the GSR then?
All right, now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 17. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Okay, and is that physical evidence that was seized under SAPD 17089350?
It was.
Okay, and is State's Exhibit number 17 labeled as E1 in your report?
It is.
Okay, and you've seen this before, State's Exhibit number 17?
Yes.
And when and where did you first see it?
When I collected it, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
scene?
On
Is that
scene,
correct?
yep.
Okay. And does it have any unique identifying markers on there?
Yeah, it does have my initials, my badge, the date. I also indicated a biohazard, and then of course the evidence ID
It's a
label.
biohazard.
Okay, and is that how you're able to recognize that it's the same thing that you seized back in 2017?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to approach it and
You
come
said
look
a
at it?
biohazard. What was that?
Tendering to defense for inspection, but at this time, the state offers State's Exhibit number 17.
Your Honor, can I briefly voir dire the witness?
Yes.
Afternoon, how are you?
Hi. Good.
This is labeled as E1 on your GSR kit,
Yes.
correct? Okay. That's different than the E1 on the sketch that we see on the overhead?
That's correct.
Okay, so they're both E1 for these
Yes.
purposes. But this is just simply the gunshot residue testing on the hands of the deceased.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no objections.
State's
There
Exhibit
you go.
17 is admitted.
Can I? Yeah.
Did you just have a moment for this?
Is your name Catherine with a K or a C? A C. C. Thank you.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
Okay, and just for your record, you've pulled out another envelope that was contained inside of State's Exhibit number 17. Can you explain what that is?
Yes, this envelope is the actual gunshot residue test. It has the contents of the vial. Before you open it, it would have gloves and the document and everything in there as well.
Okay. And just on the front of that, do you have a unique identifying mark on that?
Yes, my first initial, last name, my badge number, and the associated case number.
Thank you.
Just one.
We passed the
Only one
witness
shot
here.
was fired.
Can I proceed, Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to call your attention back to the sketch that's on the overhead.
Yes, sir?
In that overhead, right, I guess directly east of the head of the deceased, you have a notation E1 that's circled. Do you see that?
Yes.
And in this sketch, E1 is the shell casing that you saw?
Yes.
Okay. And E2 would be the baggie of marijuana that you found?
I would have to reference Kimberly Wong's report for her items of evidence.
Let me ask you this real fast. In preparation for your testimony today, have you reviewed any of the reports that weren't authored by you?
I did get a chance to take a look, but I didn't read it in detail.
Okay, and when you say to take a look, are you referring to the property report or a specific report of Ms. Wong?
The crime scene report.
May I approach? I'm sorry, Your Honor, I forget.
No problem.
You don't need me to ask that.
No, you don't have to approach.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Do you have any more of those? I don't know. All right. I just want to show you for identification defendants 4. Is this a property report that was generated in association with this same case number 170-89350?
Yes.
Is this what you're referring to that you reviewed separately from your own report?
No, sir. It would look like this, the crime scene search report.
I see. But this was authored by you, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, but you
That's
reviewed
right.
one by Ms. Wong that would look exactly like
Right.
this? Okay. But you did not review the
No, I didn't see that.
Understood. So, speaking of the report that you have in front of you that you authored, you don't mention, is there a key here that tells us what E1 and E2 are on your sketch?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that part you're relying upon from your memory?
That part, yes, but also Kimberly Wong's report would indicate the items of evidence.
Understood. Because as you were explaining, you saw the shell casing and the baggie of marijuana, but Kimberly Wong is the evidence technician who actually bagged those pieces of evidence to go back to the station for review, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, did you, in your report, you do not notate that you gave Ms. Wong any kind of a list or an index of the evidence pieces that you identified in this sketch, right?
Correct. Because
Ms. Wong applied her own evidence labels to those pieces of evidence when she processed them, right?
Correct.
So your E1 may or may not be the same as her E1, your E2 may or may not be the same as her E2, fair to say?
Right.
Okay. So, who's Allison Bustamante?
She is another crime scene investigator?
Okay. And was she present at this scene?
No.
But she was involved in this investigation at another scene related to it, right?
I have no knowledge of what was processed outside of this scene, so I'm not sure if she was or not.
Okay, understood. So would it surprise you to know that there have been multiple items of evidence entered in as E1s, E2s, E3s, etc.?
That would not surprise me.
Okay, that happens fairly commonly?
Yes, that is the standard.
That is the standard?
Yes.
In other words, your story is your story. What you did is in chronological order of your observation, E1, E2, E3, and then somebody else was sent to the scene and they have their own E1, E2, E3.
Correct.
Okay. Eventually, you all put barcodes on pieces of evidence to better identify them.
Correct.
Right? When is the barcoding process done?
We create the barcode back at the, we have a crime scene lab, and that's where you enter the information into the database and it will print a physical label.
And you were not involved in the creation of any of the barcodes for any evidence seized from any scene in this case, right?
Just my own.
Just your own?
Yes.
Okay, so you would have created the E1 barcode?
Yes.
Okay.
So what's his point?
Is there a reason why ultimately that 9mm shell casing would be labeled with a barcode under Kimberly Wong on the final property report?
Kimberly Wong was assigned the evidence collection, so anybody on scene, all CSIs on scene are searching the scene. If we observe irrelevant evidence, then we can identify it. But the CSI in charge, in this case, this was Kimberly Wong's, she was the primary crime scene investigator, and it was her duty that day to collect the evidence.
Okay, but you created the barcode for this evidence?
I created the barcode for the gunshot residue test.
For the gunshot residue test?
Yes.
Okay, which is not E1 on the drawing.
That is correct.
Correct.
It is E1 on your report, right?
Can you clarify, sir? Are you asking?
You have your report in front of you,
I do.
correct? If you take a look at it, I want to make sure I'm not mistaken.
Uh-oh.
You advise in the report that you collected the gunshot residue test, right?
Yes.
And then
We're
You
getting to the credibility now.
also advised I collected E1 as stated above.
Yes.
You recall writing that?
Yes.
Is the E1 as stated above in this report that you authored the gunshot residue test, or is it the 9mm shell casing?
The gunshot residue test.
Okay, so your E1 on your report is the gunshot residue test.
Yes.
The E1 on the sketch
On the diagram.
is the shell casing.
Yes.
Okay.
That's confusing.
You have no supplemental reports
Not that it matters.
explaining that you called two different things E1 through the course of your role in this investigation.
No.
Okay.
Dang, that's
When
tough.
would you have created the barcode for E1?
When I returned back to the office and I entered the information,
And that barcode was for the gunshot residue testing swabs.
yes, sir.
Okay. So you did not create a barcode for a 9mm shell case?
No.
Okay. Pass witness.
No further questions.
Is this witness excused?
By the state, yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, the room has been revoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone while this trial is proceeding. Make sure you're microphone and then you're excused.
Okay, thank you.
Dang, they cooked that witness, I'm not gonna lie. She messed up a little bit. Now, the question I have and I have for y'all is, what does this have to do with Tay K shooting allegedly the photographer? They're gonna make a point with this somewhere down the road, I'm sure. But it's interesting to see the consistencies in the reporting here, and maybe that's something they'll rely on to defend their client. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what y'all think in the comments in the chat.